Hello, and welcome to Tales for Life. In each episode of this podcast, we'll explore a folk or fairy tale from a different culture or region and discover the life lessons, values, and morals they offer that we can use today. Join me on the journey through the magical and meaningful world of folk and fairy tales. Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Tales for Life podcast. Today's episode is another fun one with a bit of wisdom from an ancient Indian tale, and I've titled it, Being Clever is Good, but Being Wise is Better. We spend a lot of our time in school getting graded on how well we learn things and can repeat them. Then we go out into the workforce and get a job. We figure out the best way to do our work and sometimes find ways to do it just as well, and sometimes better, with less effort. This is, by and large, how life works. Should we prove to be more clever in school or more clever at work, we're rewarded and held up as an example for others to imitate. That's how we make improvements and move forward, which is the way it should be. But sometimes those who are clever take advantage of this. They use their wit to dodge responsibility, or, worse, take advantage of others. They want to get something for free or a lot less than it should cost them, often at the expense of someone else who is less clever, and that, of course, isn't the way it should be. But life likes balance, and we often find that a little bit of wisdom, often coming from unlikely places, can counter those who would cheat their way into what they don't deserve. In fact, it's sort of a rule of life. Cleverness is always good to get us out of trouble, but wisdom is better to save us from those who would be clever to our detriment. This is so much the case that we find folk tales from around the world that teach us not to be clever, but to be wise. Because it's wisdom that takes us where we need to be, brings us happiness, and keeps us from being tricked. One wonderful example is this Indian tale retold in English at the turn of the 20th century. It's titled, A Longbow Story. One day, a bunnia, or grain merchant and baker, was walking along a country road when he overtook a farmer going in the same direction. Now, the bunnia was very grasping, like most of his class, and was lamenting that he had had no chance of making any money that day. But at the sight of the man in front of him, he brightened up wonderfully. "That is a piece of luck," he said to himself. "Let me see if this farmer is not good for something," and he hastened his steps. After they had bid one another good day very politely, the bunnia said to the farmer, "I was just thinking how dull I felt when I beheld you, but since we are going the same way, I shall find the road quite short in such agreeable company." "With all my heart," replied the farmer, "but what shall we talk about? A city man like you will not care to hear about cattle and crops." "Oh," said the bunnia, "I'll tell you what we will do. We will each tell the other the wildest tale we can imagine, and he who first throws doubt on the other's story shall pay him 100 rupees. To this the farmer agreed, and begged the bunnia to begin, as he was the bigger man of the two. And privately he made up his mind that, however improbable it might be, nothing should induce him to hint that he did not believe in the bunnia's tale. Thus, politely pressed, the great man started. "I was going along this road one day when I met a merchant traveling with a great train of camels laden with merchandise." "Very likely," murmured the farmer. "I've seen that kind of thing myself." "No less than 101 camels," continued the bunnia, "all tied together by their nose rings, nose to tail, and stretched along the road for almost half a mile." "Well?" said the farmer. Well, a kite swooped down on the foremost camel and bore him off, struggling, into the air, and by reason of them all being tied together, the other 100 camels had to follow. "Amazing, the strength of that kite," said the farmer. "But, well, yes, doubtless, yes, well, 101 camels. And what did he do with them?" "You doubt it?" demanded the Bunya. "Not a bit," said the farmer heartily. "Well," continued the Bunya, "it happened that the princess of a neighboring kingdom was sitting in her private garden, having her hair combed by her maid, and she was looking upward with her head thrown back whilst the maid tugged away at the comb, when that wretched kite, with its prey, went soaring overhead. And, as luck would have it, the camels gave an extra kick just then, the kite lost his hold, and the whole 101 camels dropped right into the princess's left eye." "Poor thing," said the farmer. "It's so painful having anything in one's eye." "Well," said the Bunya, who was now warming to his task, "the princess shook her head and sprang up, clapping her hand on her eye. 'Oh dear,' she cried, 'I've got something in my eye, and how it does smart!' "It always does," observed the farmer. "Perfectly true." "Well, what did the poor thing do?" At the sound of her cries, the maid came running to her assistance. "Let me look," said she, and with that she gave the princess's eyelid a twitch, and out came a camel, which the maid put in her pocket. "Ah," grunted the farmer. And then she just twisted up the corner of her headcloth and fished 100 more of them out of the princess's eye and popped them all into her pocket with the other. Here the Bunya gasped as one who is out of breath, but the farmer looked at him slowly. "Well?" said he. "I can't think of anything more now," replied the Bunya. "Besides, that is the end. What do you say to it?" "Wonderful," replied the farmer, "and no doubt perfectly true." "Well, it is your turn," said the Bunya. "I am so anxious to hear your story. I am sure it will be very interesting." "Yes, I think it will," answered the farmer, and he began. "My father was a very prosperous man. 5 cows he had, and 3 yoke of oxen, and half a dozen buffaloes, and goats in abundance. But of all his possessions, the thing he loved best was a mare. A well-bred mare she was. Oh, a very fine mare." Yes, interrupted the Bunya. "Get on." "I'm getting on," said the farmer. "Don't you hurry me." Well, one day, as ill luck would have it, he rode that mare to market with a torn saddle, which galled her so, that when they got home she had a sore on her back as big as the palm of your hand. "Yes," said the Bunya impatiently. "What next?" "It was June," said the farmer, "and you know how, in June, the air is full of dust storms with rain at times? Well, the poor beast got dust in that wound, and, what's more, with the dust some grains of wheat. And, what with the dust and the heat and the wet, that wheat sprouted and began to grow." "Wheat does that when it gets a fair chance," said the Bunya. "Yes, and the next thing we knew was that there was a crop of wheat on that horse's back as big as anything you ever saw in a 100-acre field, and we had to hire 20 men to help reap it." "One generally has to hire extra hands for reaping," said the Bunya. "And we got 400 mauns of wheat off that mare's back," continued the farmer. "A good crop," murmured the Bunya. "And your father," said the farmer, "a poor wretch with hardly enough to keep body and soul together." The Bunya snorted, but was silent. "Came to my father, and he said, putting his hands together as humble as could be." The Bunya here flashed a furious glance at his companion, but bit his lips and held his peace. "I haven't tasted food for a week. Oh, great master, let me have the loan of 16 mauns of wheat from your store, and I will repay you." "Certainly, neighbor," answered my father. "Take what you need and repay it as you can." "Well?" demanded the Bunya with fury in his eye. "Well, he took the wheat away with him," replied the farmer. but he never repaid it, and it's a debt to this day. Sometimes I wonder whether I shall not go to law about it." Then the bunnia began running his thumb quickly up and down the fingers of his right hand, and his lips moved in quick calculation. "What is the matter?" asked the farmer. "The wheat is cheaper. I'll pay you for the wheat," said the bunnia, with the calmness of despair, as he remembered that by his own arrangement he was bound to give the farmer 100 rupees. And to this day they say in those parts, when a man owes a debt, "Give me the money," or, if not that, "Give me at least the wheat." I enjoy this tale every time I read it. It's not just because it's funny, though that's definitely part of it. It's the reminder it gives us all about the clever traps people can set. And the best part? A little wisdom, or good old-fashioned folk sense, as I like to call it, can often save the day. So let's take a quick dive into the two big lessons this story teaches us. First, just because you're a good person and do the right thing doesn't mean you're safe from those who are out to take advantage of you. Take the bunnia. Let's call him the banker from here on. He doesn't care that the farmer is hardworking and doesn't have much money. All he sees is an opportunity to take something for himself. And, unfortunately, he's not an outlier. The world is full of these clever types who are more than willing to take advantage of anyone they can. Which brings us to the real heart of the story, the second lesson. Wisdom trumps cleverness every time. The farmer isn't some scholar or financial expert. He's not a teacher or someone with college degrees. But you don't need any of that to be wise. Wisdom comes from living, learning, and applying experience. In this tale, the farmer doesn't try to outplay the banker at his own game or even find a way around it. Instead, he leans into what he knows and uses his practical wisdom. And what happens? Clever gets outclassed by wise. Life will always have its fair share of clever people looking to get ahead at someone else's expense. But it's worth remembering that cleverness, while flashy, is no match for the steady strength of wisdom. As this story shows us, being clever can win some battles, but being wise wins the war. Until next time, keep your wits about you and let wisdom lead the way.